Hey there, welcome to the latest episode of Hiker Homily. Today we're going to reach into the old social media sector, almost said sectioner, um, for some questions a question that was asked with a nice picture, this picture here. And as you can see, the person says basically that he's a greenie. That's the term. Well, it's the term they use for themselves, who did some overnight camping, basically only in backyards of friends' houses. Didn't actually ever do any real camping, but recently went into the deep woods for the first time, decided they loved it, and they want to do some overnight camping themselves out there. Now, part of the problem with answering the person's question is, number one, they didn't say where they were, so no idea if they live in, is it like the East Coast or the South, which has a particular type of woods and forest to go into. They do mention the forest, the woods that they went into, so there's that. So more than likely they're not in the desert and stuff, but they could be out here in California, where we have mostly pine forests up in the Sierra, but we have our share of other types of forests too in different places. So he doesn't really say where, and I keep saying he, and that's kind of silly to assume they aren't saying where, because I have no idea. And they also don't say for how long. So yeah, but we're going to track in on a few things, and the chickens are saying hi. They always do, you know that. We're going to track in on a few things about that loadout, because they asked, what do you think of this loadout? And a lot of people online gave them their mind. I made a comment as well to try and help, be as helpful as I can without being critical. But here we are. This kind of situation might help other people. So here we go. Number one, the first thing I zeroed in on, maybe you did too, maybe you didn't, is this fun thing right here. We've got ourselves a nice sidearm, complete with laser sight. That's pretty amazing. And I've done a whole video on guns on the trail. So my standing in that is not ambiguous. It's a comfortable down the road stance. If it's legal and whatever reason you feel you need it, okay, fine. Me personally, it is an absolute waste of weight. You're just carrying it and the ammunition, and in this case the added laser sight. I just don't know. And again, this person doesn't say where they're at and where they're going and things. So I don't know if it's legal. And we're not going to get into the whole stupid issue. It's legal to carry a gun everywhere because the Second Amendment says I can. Piss off. There are gun laws. Live with it. And so there are places where, no, you can't bring your firearm. So I have no idea if this person is going to one of those places. I don't know. All I know is in about 40 years of backpacking, more than that, I have never, ever been in a situation where I had to have my gun, and it's just not one of those items as far as backpacking goes. I'm specifically talking to backpacking because, again, I've said it before. I am a gun owner. I'm not anti-gun. I'm not anti-Second Amendment. I do translate the Second Amendment properly as far as I'm concerned. But it's not an absolute right to carry everywhere, anywhere. It's just, if you're carrying it because you're paranoid, that's not a great reason to carry it. If there's an actual reason to carry it and it's legal to do so, cool, go for it, have fun. Me personally, it's just extra weight. So there's that. Then we move on to our friend here, which looks like it is a folding tree saw. That's a nice one. That would work really great in my garden when I have to trim small branches and stuff like that. But camping, this gets into the whole gun thing too. Is there's a lot of people, and I have to admit, I did it too when I was younger. They romanticize camping and backpacking, which are technically kind of two different things. Yes, you can camp when you're backpacking, but it's a different type of camping than like what most people call car camping. Okay, you want to have like a gun or a saw in your car for whatever reason, fine. But most places you're going to camp, you're not supposed to be sawing on limbs and stuff like that. Because imagine if you come to this really nice spot and you're going to camp there, even if it's car camping, beautiful spot, awesome. And you go out there with your folding saw and decide, I'm Jim Bridger. And you start sawing off some branches and stuff like that to make your fire and things like that. Ooh, neato. Not only will you probably have green wood on your fire, so you're going to be dealing with even more smoke than you normally would and things like that, but you're damaging this nice place that you're camping. Now imagine if even if it's only every other, but every person who camps at that spot does the same thing, or even only every other person who camps at that spot does the same thing. Next thing you know, it's not going to take long before that spot is just horrible. It's just a barren spot that's just been destroyed because every fool or every other fool who got there sawed limbs off of the trees, and so all the trees have got these sawed points, and that's an entryway for pests and things to end up killing the tree. And so up to a certain level that people can reach, there's no branches anywhere, and it just cascades into a mess. So there's no need to bring a special folding limb saw. You're not gardening, you're not doing things in your yard, and there's no reason for that. And we'll move on to this nice friend here. That's really cool. It's neat looking. It just seems like this person kind of picked a lot of the stuff they were going to be hiking with because they have this romantic idea that they're going to be this pioneer out there in the wilderness, just them against nature. And it's like, number one, I assume they're backpacking because the picture includes a backpack. But especially if they're car camping, they're kind of wasting their time. But a dagger like that, it's kind of silly. You don't need a combat knife or a big ass knife like that just to go on a simple hiking camping trip. A smaller folding pocket knife will do the same thing if you need to cut something. And generally, if you're backpacking right, the only thing you're going to need to cut is maybe the occasional rope line if you're doing something fancy with your tent cover or whatever, or you've got a block of cheese and you're going to cut stuff for lunch or for dinner and things like that. That's what you're going to need a knife for. So a folding knife, if you really want to be fancy and you still want your fancy saw, get like one of those little folding multi-tools that comes with various different choices stuff. That kind of stuff is fine, but it's smaller. You don't need a short sword hanging from your belt to go backpacking. It's just and again, I mean, if you're gonna do it, do it. I'm not necessarily telling people what they're supposed to do or anything like that. It's just we should use common sense when we're going out there to have a better time than you're going to have, because it's just like with the saw and this big dagger and the couple of the items coming up. It's just extra weight that you're going to be carrying, and then you're going to find out partway through the trip that unless you're an idiot who's just trashing the forest that you're in because you're cutting limbs off of this and you're slicing that and stuff like that, it's just extra weight that you're not going to use. Things like that. So this next one is the fun one, a tomahawk. I mean, there's some people online that were calling it a hatchet. That is not a hatchet. That is a tomahawk, which is a war implement in a Native American tribe. Okay? it really isn't supposed to be used for chopping wood and things like that. That is not a wood chopping axe. That is a tomahawk. And again, the person who posted this is like under this assumption that they're going to be Jim Bridger or Hawkeye, just run around out there with Chingachgook, and they're just gonna they're gonna take on take on the French and their native allies. I don't. You don't need a tomahawk when you're going camping. And again, even if it's meant as a hatchet, a wood chopping hatchet, you shouldn't be going out there to do that if you're camping. Even if you're on just open land and stuff like that, you are just going to trash the place. And do you care about that? Maybe you don't, but you should. You should care about what the place looks like for the next person and the person after that and the person after that. Because if those first three people, you and the next two others, are swinging tomahawks around, cutting limbs off with saws and stuff like that, the campsite is going to be crap before a year is up. If that many people are just sawing things and hacking things and stuff like that, you know. And again, it's a tomahawk. It's not made for wood chopping. It's made for combat. So you're not going to need it on a camping trip. I don't know where you're camping, but it's usually not on a battlefield. So it's extra weight. You're just carrying weight. And if you're going on any kind of a decent size backpacking trip of any length, you are going to be tired of carrying that weight by about the second day. That gun it's just useless. What are you going to shoot with it? And the laser sight, big deal. A tomahawk, a big knife, it's like, Anyway, the next thing, definitely more practical thing, is you see this big cylinder light that they plan on carrying, like it's like a spotlight. I don't know. Again, are they trying to do search and rescue, or I don't understand the thing before. But a lot of people don't know when they're first camping, because again, this person describes themselves as a greenie. In their little blurb that they wrote. So rookie move, yes, to have a large flashlight and carry it around. So as advice for anyone who's watching this and might need that advice if you're new and stuff like that, it's okay to be new and to make mistakes on what you're carrying and things like that. But hopefully you learn from it, and that's what I hope that this person did get some good feedback, by the way, on the social media platform. That wasn't, some people were being jerks and totally ripping into them and stuff like that, even worse than I was a little while ago. But they did get some good and solid advice and stuff. And on this light, the good solid advice is, instead of carrying something you have to hold in your hand and requires probably bigger batteries, it's going to be heavier and stuff like that, a headlamp on a band is absolutely fantastic. It's great for camping and things, because then you've got it up here that gives you both hands free. You're no longer having to use one hand to hold the light and stuff like that, because it's right here on the headband, and the headlamp, you can point it around. Where you look is where the light's going to go. So it's good for even walking on the trail at night if you have to do that, walking around camp at night. You can see where you're going. Both your hands are still free, and it is much, much lighter than one of those big lights that carry heavy batteries inside of it and things like that. So that would be the suggestion, like that, is a headlamp. These cooking pots, they look real pretty. They're obviously brand new and things like that. But the thing I noticed about them, those would probably be good. That's a basic little mess kit. Probably work just fine. But he does say again, I did the he thing again. They do say in the little synopsis that they wrote out, that the things that are not shown are their food, their water, their TP roll, and a quilt that they're going to use to sleep in their hammock. They're obviously hammocking because that's what they've got in the picture there, is a hammock. So I see no utensils. None. Now maybe they forgot to mention that they were set aside with the water and the other stuff, the food and things like that. Maybe. But it just seems odd that you've got a stack there with, you include your gun, you include your tomahawk, you include a short sword knife at your belt and all that kind of stuff. You include a folding saw to saw wood with, and you've got your little mess kit pots, but you don't have a spoon or a fork or a spork or anything like that. So how are you gonna eat? Now the other thing that goes along with that I don't see in the pile, and the person was asked by a couple of the others and never answered it. What do they plan on eating? Because the other thing I don't see is a backpacking or camping stove. So how are you going to cook your food? And if you're going to cold soak your food, that little pot isn't going to work. Cold soaking, you're going to need a little something different to do that right. So there's that too. Is all these neat things they included, from gun to saw to tomahawk, but nothing to cook with, nothing to eat what you've cooked with, no utensils and stuff like that. So it might be something to think about there, right? The other thing that I don't see in there, they talk about how their water isn't shown. So I assume, I don't know, based on what else has been stacked, maybe they've got a full army canteen or like one of those round canteens. I don't know. But if he's just going to use bottled water, okay, then that's understandable. A lot of folks do that. But I don't see a water filter. And again, that goes back to how long are they going to be gone? If it's just going to be for an overnight experience, then yeah, you can probably carry 4 or 5 bottles of water. That's going to be heavy. It's going to be a heavy carry, but just for an overnighter, you can carry that. And then a couple of bottles you're going to use on cooking. Of course, they don't have that, or cold soaking. And then the rest of it you're going to use for your drinking, your hydration, and things like that. But if it's going to be longer than that, you're going to need to refill water. How are you going to do that if you're backpacking? If you are car camping, yep, no problem. You can get it from a potable water source more than likely, and things like that. But if you're backpacking, you're going to need to refill your water, and you really should. I know there are a few people that are still out there who think they're too tough to filter, but it is a good idea to filter any water you take out of the wild. It just is, because believe me, take it from somebody who got Giardia. You don't want it. You don't want it. Not to mention there's a lot of other stuff you can get besides just Giardia that's even worse. So yeah, water filter. So that's my basic take on this kind of this loadout question. If you have comments, of course, always you can hit me up down below in the comment section, or you can send it to hikingforhealthca@gmail.com. As always, it's interesting, but I hope it can be a learning experience. I do applaud this person, number one, for having the courage to actually ask the question. They know they're new, so they laid it all out there, took pictures, put it out there to a social media group that has a pretty decent amount of experienced backpackers, experienced campers. And so that right there is a good move to ask, and hopefully the person was able to water off a duck's back some of the more silly comments that were just being trolls and things like that, but was able to take the comments that were helpful and take them to heart and help with their loadout and things like that. And if you're out there and you're new at this kind of thing, the big key is to think about where you're going and how long you're going to be going there, and are you going to want to carry all of these items for that distance, that length? Do you really think you're going to need it? And you have to really think inwardly about that, because a lot of people think, I need this gun because there could be this, there could be that, there could be... Okay, you need to examine yourself on why do I really think I need this? Okay? The chances of this, not big, and to be honest, that sidearm isn't going to stop that. And this tomahawk, what am I going to do with this? Well, I really shouldn't be chopping wood out in a national forest. Or even if it's not a national forest, why would I just be hacking limbs off of a tree with a war axe? Maybe I should not bring that. This multi-tool will work better than this large dagger at my side. In fact, it's probably safer, because a dagger, a large blade like that, if you end up just mostly using a knife to do things like cut cheese and basic stuff, and a smaller blade is much easier for that than having a big one. a lot less chance of an accident. Anyway, there we go. Thanks a lot for watching. Always appreciate it, you guys. And I'll catch you next time.